One element Dragon Age 2 introduces right from the beginning is the sense that the character you play, Hawke, be it male, female, rogue, warrior, or mage, is someone that has had an impact on the world. And so the metaphor we use to talk about that is the idea of the rise to power, the idea that we're covering more than just like a single adventure, but we're covering a span of time. So over the course of the game, you'll be playing through about a decade of Hawke's life and seeing how the character that you've made moves from kind of survivor and refugee into really the role of champion of Kirkwall, the title that we know, and someone who apparently has been involved in events that brought the world to the brink of war. And how that happens is honestly one of the key elements that drives the game forward.
There's been a collapse. The way forward is blocked.
The way we look at it really is that Hawke starts as someone who's, on the run. The Darkspawn Horde have come. This is an event that happens in Origins, is when Lothering gets destroyed, and that's what you're fleeing from when you start playing Dragon Age 2. As you land, you kind of establish yourself in the city of Kirkwall, but things are not good for the Hawke family. You're tight on money. You're low on friends. Life's pretty hard. And what we see then over time is that you slowly become the champion, which is a figure of kind of citizen one of the city, someone with incredible political power. And how that happens is a big element. And then, of course, that's not where we're done either. The game continues from that point forward, meaning that you get to see how your character's, influence expands and impacts the world in the city of Kirkwall. Well, the classes, as we see them, are really, they've undergone a huge rebalance from Origins. And the big thing for me was to make sure that they were all as satisfying as the mage. That's a good way to think of it. It's not like we had to hit the mage with a huge Nerf stick and make him suddenly give a mortar and pestle. They still throw fireballs, drop lightning from the sky, and so on. But we wanted to make sure that warriors and rogues had that same kind of, panache. So we sat down to kind of evaluate the classes and give them clear roles. Warriors are very good at melee AoE, and they're very good at defense. Rogues are excellent against single targets, either at range or up close, but they're terrible against groups. Well, not terrible, but, one at a time. Whereas mages then, in turn, are really, really good at controlling single targets and raining devastation down on groups. So the nice thing is you end up in a place where warriors are very good at clustering groups together, mages are very good at taking them out, while the hard targets are the ones you want to throw your rogues at. Our approach in general for combat was to make sure that we didn't lose the tactics, we didn't lose the sense of teamwork. In some cases, I think we actually augmented the amount of coordination you need to pull off, especially at the harder difficulty levels. So the elements that I think were best about Origins combat are still there, full force, and absolutely required, especially if you're playing on hard or nightmare. But when we sat down to look at, how could we bring warrior and rogue up? What we realized is that a big problem was, characters would shuffle into position, characters would sort of respond when they felt like it, they would kind of fulfill a series of hidden objectives before they actually attacked a guy, and to me that's unsatisfying, and that's what we saw coming back from feedback from people who'd played it, who were just feeling like, I don't know, it's like it's lagging, and that's never a good thing. So what we decided to do is say, what if we could make sure that when I'm pushing a button, there is a response within a certain window? And establishing rules like that for the combat team and for the animators meant that we end up with a much punchier and much more responsive system, where a character, instead of kind of waddling forward to begin attacking, leaps through the air and starts slaying into their foe. I think with bosses, what we've done is trying to take the parts of action game that fit within Dragon Age, that would kind of give players a sense of, oh, I'm smarter than them. So, telegraphing, in the sense that the enemy would rear back, and you could actually leap backwards with your rogue to get clear of the hit, means that a player who's really paying attention, is at the top of their game, can be much more proactive in avoiding damage, in positioning themselves to take full advantage of the enemy. While, when you're playing on the easier levels, well, you can just kind of beat them down and make sure your team's kind of, involved in, you've got the right person tanking, as it were. So the nice thing is that the boss fights are much, I think, more involved in terms of the way they evolve, the way the player has to react, and the way that the situation changes as you go through the boss fight, which may be more of an action game trope, but one that we carefully looked at and brought into Dragon Age so that it fit. if anything, what I'm most proud of is that the team has managed to bring what I see as more of a visual parity between the PC, the Xbox, and the PS3. Certainly the PC, there's a few more bells and whistles, DirectX 11 stuff, and you do have, the texture's a little crisper, for sure. But what the art design has done and what the art team has managed to create is a visual style that stands out, looks much crisper, much faster, runs better with the engine overall, and delivers, I think, a smoother performance on all three systems. So everybody wins, which is probably the best news you can ever give someone. And then, of course, we're releasing simultaneously for all three. So the Xbox 360, PS3, and the PC are all coming out March 8th here and March 11th.
Dragon Age 2 really unique, that makes each individual playthrough really unique, is how different the classes play. In Dragon Age Origins, playing as a two-handed rogue versus a two-handed warrior versus a sword and shield warrior wasn't really that different. They feel very different in Dragon Age 2. The dual-wielding rogue is the fastest class in the game. You're just like ninja attacks all the time, doing backflips in the air, throwing down a smoke bomb to sort of disguise your disappearance, and then showing up behind a guy and shanking him in the back. Whereas the archer is a slower playing class with a whole lot of knockback power and the ability to affect large areas. The only class besides mages that can cast ranged area of effect attacks. So there's a great variety there. And one of the things that we have is a cross-class combo system, where a warrior can inflict the stagger status effect, or a mage can make an enemy brittle, or a rogue can disorient an enemy. And then any class besides that class can then exploit that. One of the things that you find in Dragon Age 2 is if you play on casual or normal, the game really feels like an action RPG, where you're primarily playing in real time, and you're playing with a fairly limited set of abilities. You have as many abilities as someone who's playing on a higher level does, but you find that you're using the same ones over and over again. Whereas when you play on hard or nightmare, I'm doing a hard playthrough right now, and it's a lot of fun. It's really back to the tactical Dragon Age Origins experience, where you're doing a lot of pausing, considering your situation, deciding which enemies have to go down first so that you don't get overwhelmed. We have a lot of wave fights, where you've got 10 guys, and then once you've got rid of 7 of those guys, another 10 guys show up. And you kind of have to make sure that you're dealing with the greatest threats at any one given time, which doesn't even mean the most powerful guys, but the guys who've gone aggro on your mage, because your mage is the only guy who's keeping the party alive. And then you find that, warriors and rogues quite often have fairly limited stamina pools. They can't use that many abilities at any one time, so even if you buy a lot of abilities for them, they're overwhelmed with choice. They can maybe pop 2 abilities in a fight, but they've got 5, so what are you going to do? So what we've done there is each of the talent schools, instead of having just 4 abilities in a straight chain like before, now it's sort of constellation-like system, where 1 ability might unlock 2 more abilities, or 2 abilities might be required to unlock a 3rd ability. Many of those abilities will have upgrade abilities, so that you're using the same amount of mana or stamina to use the ability, but it's more powerful than it was before. Not just greater damage, but now it affects a 10-meter radius, or a 10-meter circumference, diameter, instead of 5. Or now it's putting down an obscure effect that helps your allies hide from enemy attacks while they're inside this cloud. In Dragon Age 2, instead of requiring that you become friendly with all of your party members for fear of them leaving your party as they would in Origins if you made them too angry, we've introduced a system that really encourages you to be consistent in your leadership. If you are continually taking stances that offend, say, Aveline, that's okay, as long as you're consistent and she realizes that you are a leader who she can come to rely on. At least she knows where you're going. Essentially, instead of just becoming a friend with her, you can become a friend or a rival. And the aim is just not to be a sort of middle ground kind of guy who's continually taking 2 steps this way and 2 steps this way. You want to push Aveline towards friendship or towards rivalry. Once you get sufficiently far along these tracks, you get free passive abilities for the followers that will improve their abilities in combat, either in a sort of friendly way or a rivalrous way. They're different abilities depending on which direction you're going in. Just a reminder that Dragon Age 2 is out March 8th in North America, March 11th in Europe, on PC, Xbox 360, PS3, and Macintosh. Also, there's a downloadable demo available late February on PC, Xbox 360, and PS3, so anyone can check it out for free, and you'll unlock some great in-game items in Dragon Age 2 just for playing the demo.